You can come in, Mr. Franklin. Have a seat right there, and we'll hook you up to the polygraph run by Miss Ortega in the corner there. My name is Mr. Ulster. I will be running the psychological evaluation. Before we actually get into that, I just have a few basic questions that will help us calibrate the polygraph, and we'll be here for our records. Could you please state your name for the record?
Marion Franklin. But everybody calls me Frankie.
All right. What is your age?
32.
Okay. What do you do for a living?
Couple things. Sometimes guide between towns, hired muscle. Mostly I'm an entertainer, though.
An entertainer, eh? What do you play or perform?
Trumpet, jazz, mostly. Though I'm always on the lookout to try out new instruments here and there. They're not very common here in the wasteland.
It's true, I haven't run into too many musicians. For the record, I do want to say, according to your medical examination, you have a clean bill of health. That is good to see. All right, now actually getting into the evaluation. Try to answer these next questions as fast as you can. On a scale of strongly disagree to strongly agree, respond to these statements. I listen to authority figures in my life.
Oh, strongly agree.
I am a private person.
Disagree?
So you think you're a public person?
I'd like to think of myself. Could you elaborate on what you mean by private person?
I suppose it is literally just, are you a bit of an open book? Do you feel like you are public with your past, with what you've done in your life, that kind of thing?
Strongly disagree then.
That you are a private person?
Disagree that I'm a private person, yes.
Okay, good to know. Next statement. I feel like people in my life trust my judgment.
Neutral? Neither here nor there, I suppose.
That was a fine response. I make mistakes constantly.
No, disagree.
If you betray me, I will never forgive you.
Oh, I suppose that kind of depends on what you've done, so slightly agree.
Interesting. What kind of betrayal would you forgive?
It's hard to put into words exactly. I get it. The world's not the place it used to be. Some people just get stuck between a rock and a hard place, They've got two bad decisions to make, and neither one of them works out for their favor. So I can understand to some degree when people may make it may betray me, but I think betray is a little bit of a strong word. If it's intentional, then a whole different issue. I don't think I would forgive that.
Mm-hmm. Understandable. Final statement. I often stick my nose where it doesn't belong.
No, strongly disagree.
Okay, that wraps it up for the statements. And now for a few more personal questions. Though this is a job interview, we do encourage you to be honest for your own sake. It will only help your case. Why did you apply for this position?
Oh, well, I've always had this dream of opening up my own place, an entertainment diner. Big jobs like this don't always come by, and to be perfectly honest, I could really use the caps to help further that along.
An entertainment diner? I don't think I've ever seen one of those ever. Do you have a location in mind for that?
Not quite yet. Preferably, it's a place with not a whole lot of renovation. Maybe an old diner, but I haven't quite found the perfect place to set up shop. Preferably a big crossroads place where many people coming through, or maybe a big city or settlement, perhaps.
It's a pretty concrete dream. Interesting. Next, please describe your skill set in one sentence.
Oh, I guess I'm really good with talking with people. Negotiations, de-escalation, yeah, if that makes sense.
I think it does. I can see that. Have you ever used this skill before in the past? When's the last time you had to de-escalate a conflict?
No, with traveling as I do, there's a lot of occasions where it comes in handy. Most of the time, especially if you're traveling with a lot of people, it just brings out the worst in people. So, squabbling over dinner and things you find along the road, it's most of the time it's just keeping people happy and agreeable.
All right. Please disclose any illnesses, conditions, or past medical procedures you've undergone that may impact your ability to complete the job.
None that I'm aware of. I mean, you said it yourself, I got a pretty clean bill of health.
Indeed I did. Are you addicted to any chems?
No. Never had much use for them, really, but they don't even work too well on ghouls anyhow.
Fair enough. Have you ever frozen up in a tense situation?
No.
That's actually why.
What happened, Mr. Franklin?
All right, it's not a story I like to tell, but it was my first big performance, relatively big anyways. A lot of pressure on you when you're doing a solo gig. And it wasn't too bad, just a little bit of an awkward startup, but once I got into it, I snapped out of it pretty quickly.
I was not expecting to hear stage fright from any of the responses on these questions, but it's a welcome surprise. Have you ever blacked out or had moments where you lost control of yourself?
I got knocked out once when I was a kid. Don't really remember much of it, but I was told I was unconscious the whole time, so.
Okay, that's plenty for that one. Are you a member of any other factions or organizations? If so, which ones, and how far does your loyalty to them go?
Not any nowadays, but I used to be part of an Adamite camp a long time ago. Didn't really buy into the religious nonsense. I still get along with them fine, but I wouldn't say I was particularly loyal to them. That was over 20 years, so.
Wow. I've never actually met an Adamite before, or, well, an ex-Adamite in this case. What drew you to them in the first place? Or your family, given that you were 13, I take it?
12 at the time.
Ah.
It was my parents, actually. My father wasn't doing too well, and he needed some medical attention. They happened to be the closest settlement around, and, well, they helped us out quite a bit, but while my father was still in recovery, the camp was only for those of the Adamite religion, so we kind of had to fake it to stay there for a little bit. After that, we just pretended until we needed to leave.
Interesting. Was being with the Adamites... I apologize, I need to be a little bit more direct about this. What was the exact cause of your ghoulification?
Yeah, well, that's actually part of the reason we left the Adamites. It didn't work too well, as you might be able to tell.
Okay. More questions about being a ghoul. Do you feel as though you work well with non-ghouls?
No, I'd work with anyone, regardless of who they were. There's not a lot of people who like working with me, so I try to keep an open mind.
That's good to hear. And don't worry, all the candidates that we will choose for this expedition should be fine with working with a ghoul.
That's a wonderful thing to hear, actually.
Okay. Okay, next I'm going to ask you some more philosophical questions. You're welcome to expound on any of these as much as you'd like. Who was the last person you killed?
Ooh, I don't know who they were exactly, but that they were threatening someone close to me, and I did what I had to do. I didn't want to, but it was like a reflex or something. It all happened so quick. It happened before I even knew what was going on.
Who was the person being threatened, and how did this situation come about? I mean, I thought you said earlier that your main skill was de-escalation.
I did say that, yes. It was my brother, actually, who was being threatened. He ain't like me. He's a bit of a hothead. They were both making the situation worse. It wasn't just him, and one thing just led to another. that was actually the reason why I found out talking was better than fighting. I didn't like what I did.
Well, that leads quite well to the next question, and that is, have you ever felt remorse for killing someone?
No. Not a day goes by where I don't forget. I know the world isn't what it used to be. I know it's tough out there, but that doesn't mean violence is always the answer. I know there's a lot of bad people out there who would, do you harm without a second thought, but I'd like to think we can make the world a little bit of a better place, as long as we're trying hard,
Next question, what moral lines would you never cross?
Well, forgive me, this won't be an exhaustive list. If I leave anything out, it's not because I would do that, it's just, yeah, you get it. Well, like I mentioned, I don't do drugs, I'm not addicted to chems. I don't like to hurt others if I can avoid it. I know sometimes it's unavoidable, but I wouldn't sell anyone out either. I don't like doing betrayal myself. It's it never sits right with me. Is there anything you need more specifics on?
That will suffice, Mr. Franklin. Would any of your past actions or allegiances negatively impact your ability to represent the company in the surrounding communities?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. Do you have any racial, regional, or faction biases that may hinder your ability to do business with certain groups of paying customers?
No, like I mentioned, I try to get along well with everyone.
Mm-hmm. Can you be bought or bribed? What would it take to turn you?
No. Would never do that. Even if you could offer me everything I wanted, I could open the entertainment diner and fulfill my lifelong dream, so to speak. I don't think I'd ever be able to forget what I had to do to get there. And, well, you know the stories. People do those things to get everything they wanted, and then they end up giving everything away because it just reminds them of what they did. Things like that, they don't sit right with me.
Strong sense of guilt. Noted. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What are your long-term goals? I know you've mentioned this a couple times, so you're welcome to expound upon it here.
Well, hopefully in 5 years I'll at least find a decent saxophone, but I'd like to start up the diner as soon as possible. This country needs a little bit of respite, an oasis in the wasteland.
Certainly a refreshing idea. Now for the final portion, some hypothetical situations. There's no right answer to these, but there are certainly wrong ones. Say a company representative gives you chems to sell on your next caravan. How do you respond?
Well, if they're hard chems, probably not. I don't know what hard chem out there that's actually good for people, but if it's something like Radaway, Stimpaks, more the medicine kind of thing, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I don't know what all business the DTL is up to, but, I'd probably double check with another representative to see if it was a legitimate business venture. You never know. Doctors prescribe things sometimes, and sometimes people need those things, I guess. I don't know.
Correct answer, Mr. Franklin. I'm impressed. Sounded like you read it straight out of the DTL handbook. Very good. Next scenario, a raider band kidnaps a fellow company representative and asks for a hefty ransom. How do you respond?
Well, you guys got ransom insurance?
I'll answer that when you answer the question completely.
Sure thing. Well, I'd like to start prefacing this. Most people don't kidnap people because they want to do them any harm. They're just trying to strong-arm innocent people into giving away what they have. Even if it's a hefty ransom, normally they're just interested in getting what they can in the moment, and then they're going to leave you on your way and get out of your hair. If it was a little more aggressive, a little more violent, then I'd probably try to send out a message for help, assuming we need it. I'd probably warn others to avoid the area if it was a more serious threat.
Good answer. And to answer your question, we do have funds allocated in the case of extreme ransoms. Okay, next question. While traveling, you encounter two non-raider groups in a firefight. It's not clear who started it or what the source of the conflict is. How do you respond?
Well, as long as you can avoid them, that's probably the best thing to do. Uh, I'd love to say I'd love to solve the conflict, but usually not worth catching a stray bullet for. You know, normally it's fighting over materials, a mutiny of sorts, whatever. But best to leave them to their business until they cool off.
Understandable. Next scenario, you find out that a friend of yours back home is in a bit of a pinch and has asked for your help. How do you respond?
Well, I don't think there's too many people like that out there, but you know, I've got good people paying good money for the services DTL provides. I mean, there's too much at stake to just leave everything and go help them. You know, there's the money involved, the DTL's reputation, the people I'm actively working with. I can't risk their life for someone else just because they called for help. You know.
Noted. Final question. Say you're the DTL representative at a prearranged high-value deal, and the buyer says he won't deal with no ghoul. How do you respond?
Yeah, unfortunately that happens sometimes. Well, it ain't my fault I'm like this, and I try to be polite as I explain that, you know. I used to be a human back in my day. If they still didn't want to do business with me, that's up to them. I'd try and rearrange the deal, maybe if there was another representative nearby that was more amiable and less wrinkled. Hopefully they'd still be willing to do business with DTL.
That is good to hear. Let's hope that situation never comes up. That should be it, Mr. Franklin. Before we end this, is there any other information you find it necessary to disclose to the company pending your employment?
Not unless you got any follow-up questions for me.
I do not. I think that should be it. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you.